Welcome back to a new one, and on this one I will go over the Arturia Pigments version 6 new additions. We have a few. I will cover the most important ones like the new Modal engine, the new filters, the random generators, the Env.Fllower, and a couple more things. If you like what I do, please like the video. This channel is supported by viewers only. If you want to buy me a coffee to say thanks and help the channel keep going on, you can. You have links on the description for PayPal, YouTube Thanks, and Patreon. Right, so the Modal engine uses physical modeling to create different sounds that we cannot create with the other engines, and this is something that's completely true. Everything starts with the resonator type. You have the string resonator or you have the beam resonator, and they really sound different. Something needs to make the resonator go, and I will try to avoid being technical as much as possible. Right here, if you click, it says collision exciter mode, and the other one, it says friction. So you have the collision and the friction. If I play something, notice that there's a line going to the resonator. So this will excite the resonator, and we get a sound. If I go all the way down in volume, we get absolutely nothing. And notice I'm playing a key. So no collision, no sound. We'll go all the way up in volume. Then you have on the other side, the friction. And the friction works more on the rest of the sound. Right now the volume is all the way down, but if we go up, it changes whatever it happens after. I will explain the resonators in a minute. First, I want to cover everything that happens right here. Just like the harmonic engine, we need partials. You can see them right here, partials. And if I go here and select the harmonic engine, notice that we also have partials. I'm gonna turn it off for now and just go back. If I play something and go all the way down, notice it says 100, but if I go all the way down, we have one single lonely tone. And this tone is the fundamental tone. The loudness of this tone is going to be this one, the one that says bass. And right now it's just 100%. If I go down in this fundamental tone, we are just, exciting but not getting anything because the volume is all the way down. If you double click, it goes to 100, but you can boost this fundamental tone if you wanted to. We could have the main tone all the way down, but if we add the partials, we can hear everything that it's, behind that partial or that, fundamental tone. But, if I go all the way up, notice that we hear that fundamental tone. And it really makes a difference. And that's why it's called bass. Notice that it's just a little more bassy and very narrow. But yeah, this is the fundamental tone, and it's, again, really important depending on what you want to do right here. I'm going to go all the way up on the partials, and then you have the decay and you have the brilliance. And this is simple. The decay is the duration of the resonator. If I go down, we have something super plucky. And if I keep going up, we'll add more decay. And then if I go all the way up, it will be just a lot longer. Still, it's not sustaining. When it goes up, it's going to go down a little bit. And then it's just going to keep going down. And I'm holding a key right now. Now then, you have the brilliance, and this one is the volume for the higher partials. It's not a cutoff, it's not a filter, but, kind of works like it. If I go down, the higher partials are still there, but, you're kind of going down on them. Almost works like a cutoff. I'm going to double click to go back to default values. And then we have this section right here, the timbre. This timbre is a collection of profiles. If you click right here, notice that you have different profiles. And this will change the balance of the different partials that we get right here. Now, this is very similar to the harmonic engine. If I play something on the harmonic engine, we can see all the partials right here. Now, I'm going to go up on the depth, and now whatever waveform we have right here will affect the order of the partials. And then you have the A and the B. These are just two different waveforms. Right now, we are shaping the partials by using the A. But if I go to the other side, now we are shaping the partials according to whatever we have on the B waveform. So this is very similar on the Modal engine. If I go right here, we are using this, this profile. But if I keep changing them, notice that it has a different tone because we are affecting the profile of the partials. And they all sound very different. That's the plan. You get a different timbre. And all of this is about timbre, is about tone. If you want to create something plucky, and then maybe this is just not cutting it, you need to try different profiles just to find the tone that you want. Now then I'm going to go back to pure and maybe back to defaults. And then you have the shaper. This shaper is already in effect. If I play something, I'm going to go up on decay. We can see and hear all the different partials. And I'm using this string because it's just easier to see. The other one we have less, so this one is just a little bit more useful. When we use it, the shaper is already affecting the partials. And you have different profiles, just like the timbre. The square, brass, and then the guitar will not affect the partials. If I keep changing them, notice that it sounds pretty much the same. But as soon as I go to other profiles, it's affecting the partials. And of course, we get a different sound, different tone. Just like we discussed with the harmonic engine, when we sweep or we change, we morph between different profiles. Well, this morph that we have right here is pretty much the same. It's going to morph between two profiles, letting some partials, go up and some other partials go down. So on top of the different, the different profiles, you get to morph and just to see if you get the different timbre. And just like, again, the timbre is something that when you're sound designing, you just need to go to the profile and just check different ones and see if you can get the tone that you want. I'm going to start with a new patch, so we have everything at default, and then we need to talk about this warp. This one is very important. When I play something, we have a collection of partials, right? And we talked about this. And within the spectrum, all the different partials, they have a very specific order, according to whatever shaper and timbre that we are using. And of course, the collision. The thing is that the warp, what will do, it will move the partials around the spectrum. If I press it and keep playing, I'm going to move the partials, and they are moving towards the right side. Right? You can see them go. Then we can do the same, but we can go to the other side. Right? So we go to the left side. Now notice that if I go down, still sounds musical. If I go up, same thing. It sounds very musical. And this is because the Q is enabled, and this is quantization. It means that it doesn't matter if I go down or up, it's being quantized. So, we get a more musical type of tone. If I disable the quantization, it's not quantizing anymore. So we have a more natural warping. It's going to go up, or then we go down. And of course, we get atonal sounds because it's not quantizing anymore. Notice that when I play something and then I warp it, it moves everything that is not the fundamental. If I go up, everything is being moved, but not the fundamental. And if I go down, it's the same thing. It's moving everything, but not the fundamental one. So that's going to be the range. The range now, it says 1. It's saying that whenever you warp everything that it's not the first fundamental. But I can say 2, and now it's going to move everything but the first 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 8. And this will give you very interesting sounds. Especially if I go down on the warp, these ones are going to overlap these ones. And again, we get very interesting sounds. This is what this engine is all about, creating very unique sounds. I'm going to go back on range and then back to the center on the warp. Then you have the shape, and this is almost like the timbre or the shaper. It will affect the warp shape. So if I go up and I warp it, I want you to take a look at the right here. If I go down, notice how it's reordering different partials. It's affecting the shape. That's why it's called shape, I guess. Like before, you get different tones. And this is what it does behind the scenes. If you go to the manual, it's affecting the different partials, distance, and the volume. So like I said before, all of these controls will affect the tone. So when you're designing or creating a sound or whatever, you just need to mess with these controls and, check. Just play around with the different controls and see if you can get something that you like. It takes a little bit of time because you have a lot of different possibilities, but it's, just fun. It's fun and it's just super creative. And again, it's something that you cannot create with the wavetable or the analog engines. Now, then you have the stereo, this option right here. And I will go to the default values, square, and then to the pure, and I will add a longer decay. So as you can hear, it's a completely mono type of output. If I even turn off the stereo, the detune will detune the partials. If I keep going up, notice that they sound detuned. But it's mono, right? Well, if we enable the stereo, this one will spread the harmonics on the left and the right, and the detune will just make it super wide because we are detuning left and right. Super mono, super stereo. But you don't need to go to 100%, you just can do a tiny little bit and then adjust the spread and have a little bit of separation. All of this is just completely up to you and the sound that you want to create. Like we discussed previously, the collision exciter, it's fundamental, and this is what makes the resonator resonate. For example, if you take a guitar and you strike the string with a guitar pick or your finger, the string will vibrate differently. A pick is not your finger. It just sounds different. Still, it sounds like a guitar string, but the timbre will be different. Well, this is the same thing. The collision will let you high pass and low pass the transient, and this will, of course, affect how the resonator resonates. Volume, pretty simple control. It will control the volume of the collision. If we affect it less, it will be less. And then we have the attack. And the attack, it's just very interesting. The attack, if you think about this and maybe an envelope, it will just, kind of smooth how the transient makes the resonator resonates. This will do that. If I do just a tiny little bit, it's like adding a tag from an envelope. Let me go back to defaults in this one. We are doing that, but as soon as you go up on the attack, instead of just sending one impulse, it's going to send many. That is how it's really different. If I go all the way up on the attack, we can even see many impulses affecting the resonator. So it's just not like going up on an attack on an envelope. So if you want something more transient like attack all the way down, if you want a little bit of smoothness, a little bit of attack, and if you want to multiply all the different impulses, just go up on the attack. Then you have the other ones, the other collision, it's going to be the transient. This one has the same idea, but the generator, what generates the impulse or the transient, is a sample, just a sample. So each sample will give you a different character. Is that they are all just giving you a different timbre. It's because again, it's just a sample. Since we are playing a sample, of course you have a volume, but you can also tune the sample down, and this will affect the resonator differently, or you could just tune it up. Now then you have this control. This one is the key tracking icon, and if it's on, it means that when you play the sample, because again, it's just a sample playing behind the scenes, it's going to play at whatever pitch you play with your keyboard, just like a sample player. So the thing is that if this one is off, since we are playing a sample, if it's off, it's not tracking whatever we are playing on our keyboard. It will play whatever pitch that the sample has, and this will affect the resonator. Now, the thing is that when you turn it off, if you're playing maybe a middle C, which probably is what the sample is, it will not affect the sound. This really makes a difference when you play low pitch. That is, I'm playing a really low key now. Maybe I'm going to play this one. It's super low. And I'm going to just disable this. And notice it sounds really different. So yeah, that's pretty much it. But again, if you play something, let me go for it. If you play something that it's closer to maybe a middle C, it's just not going to affect it that much. I'm going to even go up. Notice that there's no difference. It's because the sample, I guess, is pitched to this note. No difference. I'm going to explain the audio input in a minute. I'm going to leave it on the collision one. And now I'm going to go all the way to the other side, to the friction exciters. Think of the friction exciters as what happens after the collision. The default one that you get right here is the friction exciter of friction, the default one. And we kind of already talked about this. if you add volume, you will be affecting the partials that we have right here. I'm gonna go all the way up in volume for now. Of course, you can, just like the collision, chop the lower frequencies and the higher frequencies, so it will affect the partials differently. The most important control right now on this one is going to be the density. If I go all the way down and I just tap the keys, this is just, it sounds very different and it's not constant. And it's because this density control is in hertz. If I hover, you can see hertz. So it's not a value. So if I maybe do just a tiny little bit and I play and keep playing, I'm playing a key and sustaining it, it will excite and send impulses to the engine, you know, to the partials and the whole resonator. Because it goes in hertz, it's super slow. As we keep going up, it's just going to be more intense, and at some point, it will be more intense and random. If we keep going up, just super fast, and at some point we cannot tell the difference because it's just super fast, right? The other exciters are pretty similar, you know, they're not that different. If I go to the noise one, we have volume, which is how this affects. If you go volume all the way down, nothing is affecting. And we also have a high pass and a low pass. But this one is noise. What we are using is just different profiles based on noise. And this will just, you know, affect the partials. And like before, I'm gonna go maybe all the way down, just back to defaults. And whatever profile that you used right here, just like the timbre and the shaper, will affect the sound and give you a different tone. This one again, vinyl, just lo-fi. So yeah, just different tones. And again, you just need to play with this and try different profiles. They are all different. Sounds similar because it's the same collision, same resonator, but this affects the rest of the partials and therefore you get a different sound. With the granular, we work with grains, so we have a sample. We need to choose a sample. Now each sample sounds of course different, so the impulse will be different. And I'm just playing and holding a key. If I go to different ones, again we get a different type of sound. Since it's grains, we are talking about grains, we need to decide the speed at which the grains are being generated. This is of course the rate control. And we can use hertz, or we can go to sync or stride, you know, the default options that you get for on Pigments. If I go up, we have a lot of different grains. Maybe if I go to a different one, we get a different sound. And like we discussed previously, we are working with samples, so I can tune the samples down and affect the tone, or go up, and it will really affect the sound, right? As we just learned, the resonator really needs a transient or a collision or friction to affect the sound. So instead of using the default ones, we can use an external input. Right now I'm using Bitwig, but all of this, it really depends on your DAW. If I go here, I'm gonna mute this one as Pigments, but I'm gonna go up on this control. This is just a sample of a track, a drum track. That's all it is. I'm gonna keep it playing and I'm gonna go all the way down. On my track where I have pigments, I'm gonna go to the sidechain and I can choose a different track as the sidechain. In this case, I'm gonna go to the audio 2 and I can see that right here is the drum track. So when I select it, all of this is gonna go to Pigments, and now Pigments is listening for that track. So now I'm using the drum loop as an exciter. I'm gonna go down on the friction and I'm gonna just play it. And I want you to see how the drum track is affecting the resonator. And it's just affecting it at the rhythm of the drum track. And the same thing goes with the friction. If I go up on friction, whatever we have on as an audio input, it will affect it. I'm gonna go to the transient. So it's just following the drum track. If I maybe go to the utility engine and I go here and select audio input, we can hear the drum track behind the scenes from this synthesizer from Pigments. And we can hear that it's the audio input. The exciters are just, grooving along with the drum. Same again with the audio input. And this will again it's a great tool because now you have a different way. Now in this case, I'm just using a drum track because it's just really obvious what it's doing behind the scenes. But you can use whatever other sound as an exciter, as a collision, or maybe as a friction exciter. On the version number 6, we get a new filters interface, as you can see, and it's just much better than before, a lot more organized, and especially since they added filters, now it's just easier to select, filters. The stars of this section is the cluster, new addition, and the lo-fi filter. First, I'm going to go to the cluster. And as you can see, you have a peak, a band pass, a low pass, plus a high pass, and then you have a notch. From all of these types of filters, the main difference is between the peak, right here, let me just check the, move the cutoff. You have the peak, then you have the peak 18, which is going to be much more aggressive. Then you have the cluster, and then you have the cluster, which is the low pass and high pass. And notice at the bottom, we don't have a peak. So if I take you to the first one, which is going to be the peak one, right here, you select the frequency, and then you can add up to maybe 1, you can use 1, or you can add up to 5 different peaks. On the combinations of low pass and high pass, of course, you don't have peaks. You cannot use it like that. I'm going to go back to peak, and right here, it's very simple to use. I'm going to play something with a little bit more harmonics. You have 5 different peaks. You can sweep the frequency. And the main controls for pretty much all of them, but not the combination of low pass and high pass, it's going to be the resonance and the spread. The spread is going to change the distance between the different peaks. And the resonance will change the depth and the height of the different peaks. Then if I go to the other one, which is the peak 18, it's just going to be a more pronounced, peaks. That's pretty much the difference. That's it. If I keep moving forward, the other one is going to be a band pass instead of just a peak, but the controls are the same. You control the distance and then how aggressive it is. This one is going to be a more aggressive one. And then we get into the low pass and high pass combinations. Right here, you just don't get a peak. But you have a resonance for the low pass and the high pass, and what you can change is the distance between both. Same thing with the other one, the 24, just a much more aggressive cut. And then you have a notch, which is the same as the peaks, but backwards. And I think these ones are great, just a great addition, especially if you want to use a second filter. Just get, just a different sound. Great for, modulating or just assigning to a random or an LFO or maybe a function, again, getting different motions. I'm going to turn this one off, and then you have the lo-fi filter. This one will essentially downsample whatever is within the spectrum. The frequency sets the cutoff and the downsampling frequency. If I play something now, nothing's just happening, but if I keep going down, everything is right here is going to be downsampled. Even if the frequency is all the way up, and we are not doing anything, it's still being affected, especially by the jitter. This one adds kind of a variation, maybe a noise style variation. If I go down, it's going to be less, but it's still affecting it. We can see it right here. I'm going to go up. And then there's it. We have that noise type of sound, especially when we work with the lo-fi processors. If I go down, it's going to be just more and more, and you get a lot of just noise. We go double click and go back to 0, and then you have the other controls, the pre-filter and the post-filter. Notice that both are off. So this means that by default, you don't get it. So you need to turn it on. The pre-filter is pre-downsampling. So this will affect is a filter that affects the sound before going to the filter. And you can of course cut or go and just open it all the way up. In this case, I'm just going to cut, and maybe I'm going to put it right here. So we are cutting before going into the lo-fi. And the other one is going to be the post filter. So this one is going to cut after we process with the lo-fi. And same deal. We can go down or we can go up. One thing that you need to take into account is that when we use the pre-filter and the post-filter, when we move the frequency, these filters are kind of tied to the frequency. So when we move, both will move as well. And this is actually great, because if not, we will have, every time we change the frequency, we will need to go to the pre-filter and the post-filter and adjust the values. But right here, we just don't need to do so. And if you go all the way down, or actually all the way up, that is that the filters will adjust to the highest frequency. Oh. So these ones are the new filters. Another new thing that we get on the version 6 are the modulators. We have within the random, we have the random, not confusing at all. And then we have the voice modulator. I'm going to go first to the random, and this is just pretty simple. We need to assign it to something, and for now I'm just going to take it to maybe the cutoff and go up. And we can see how the random is modulating this control. And if I play something, just going to, randomly modulate the cutoff. So right here you see a line right there in the middle, and the values will go up or will go into positive or will go into negatives below, the line, the center line. And this means that this bipolar, it goes up and goes down, but you can click right here and you can make it unipolar, which means that it will only go up and not down. Now the rest of the controls are just pretty simple. I'm gonna go back to bipolar for now. I'm gonna play something, and of course this will generate a random instruction. So the rate is going to control how fast it's going to generate this instruction. And for now, I'm just pressing and holding a key. I'm not just, tapping the key. So the rate, again, can be synced. You can go to hertz. I'm going to go to hertz, just freely generate a random instruction. We can go slow or maybe go into divisions and sync it to whatever DAW tempo we are using. So the rate will generate a new random instruction, but also when we play a key. I'm going to go to the keyboard, I'm going to show you right now, and I'm going to be doing something like this. I'm just going to tap it. Every time I tap it, that is what's going on right here. It's just generating a new instruction. So now it's a combination of the rate and a combination of the retrick source, which in this case is going to be whenever I press a key. But you can select other sources. You can select an LFO or maybe a sequencer or, whatever function, whatever it is that you want to do. But you can also select free running. Whenever you do free running, now this retrick source is kind of disabled. So the only one that is generating a new instruction is going to be the rate. I'm going to go to, 1.8, something that makes sense. And I'm just going to flip the switch. And now it's going to be just positive. I want you to hear, and for now I'm going to do this. I'm going to explain this in a second. It's just an on and off type of deal. But it's perfect because we are following the 1.8 and the rate. The jitter, what we will do, we will add a little bit of variation to the perfect time that we have right here. If I go up, notice that now it's not so perfect anymore. So this will add imperfections to the rate. Or how we generate the new instruction or new random. Then on the other side, you have the smooth. Right now, this one's the modulation is just super harsh. If we smooth the instruction, and now we have something more like a sine wave. So we are just kind of shaping the corners. All right, so then we have the distance. And I'm going to go slow so we can see this. Every time that it will generate a new random instruction, it will go maybe all the way up, or sometimes it's close to the previous instruction. And this is what the distance is all about. It's about the previous instruction and the next instruction. If I go down, it means that the new instruction will deviate less from the previous instruction. So now the random, whenever it generates a new value, it's just not super aggressive, right? It's just very little. If I keep going up, now it will be a little bit more, noticeable. If I go all the way up, it's super aggressive, so it's going to be up and all the way down, always. And this is again super important, depends on what you want to do. Let's say that you want to go fast, you want that modulation, and you want to make it bipolar, but you don't want it to for the modulation to go really up and really down, so you lowered the distance. And now it's just super smooth. It's not going to go crazy up and crazy down. That's the point. Now another thing that you get, and I'm going to go maybe to 100%, is going to be the freeze, this option. If I go up, at some point it's going to be up, and at some point it's going to be down. If I freeze it, whenever the modulation is, it's going to go and stay there. And now it will not generate a new instruction. That's the plan. But notice that still the other one is selected, so I can kind of turn the freeze off, and it will continue from where it left off. If I freeze again, it's going to stop right there, and I'm going to continue, and it's going to continue from there. Coming up next, it's going to be the voice modulator. I'm going to go there, and this one is really good. I really like it. You have 8 different voices. That's why it says 8 voices right here. You can go down in the amount of voices. So now the instruction is going to be between 4 voices. And this is pretty simple. It depends on the mode that you are selecting. Right now, I'm going to use cycle. So you can draw whatever it is that you have right here, and every time I play a key, it will go to this modulation, and it's going to go to the next one, and so on and on and on. I'm going to go back to 8. So I'm going to tap the keys just like that. You can see it right here. And every time I tap, it's going to go to the next one and then cycle back to the beginning. You can draw right here very simply, very easily, the different modulations, or you can just randomize it. And you can even reset to start from the beginning. You can also make it bipolar or make it unipolar, so it will only go up and not down. We kind of discussed this already. So as you can see, it's just very simple to use, but the modes are just a little bit confusing. Cycle, it means that every time I play a key, it will cycle and just go to the next voice. And again, we are talking about voices. Every time I play, it's going to go to the next one. Now, if I go to the reassign, it's just going to be a little bit different. I'm going to play a key, and if I play a key again, and I'm doing this, it's just not moving to the next one. This is because the reassign mode, it works like a synthesizer would handle voices. If you play a note, it will remember the step assigned to that note, and when you release and press it again, it remembers that that voice or note belonged to this one. If I just hold, and now I'm going to show you, I'm going to play this note, this one, and I'm going to play a higher octave. So if I do something like this, the voice modulator will remember that that voice is going to be the second one. So it remembers the voice. So every time that we play new keys, it will remember where that voice was assigned to which step. If you play more than 8 voices, of course, it will reassign the step to the new voice. And then you have the random. I guess I don't need to explain this one. Every time you play something, it will go to a random voice. Another addition is the Env.Fllower that you get on the Combinate modulator. And this one is just that simple. This modulator listens to a source, and you have the source right here at the bottom. It will generate an envelope based on that. By default, again, is the filter number 1, which is whatever sound that comes out of this filter. I'm working on a default patch. Maybe I will add a little bit of delay and a little bit of reverb, and I'm gonna go maybe to a saw. You can have a it sounds like that. I'm going to cut a little bit of the higher frequencies. And now this will listen to a source. In this case, whatever that comes out from filter 1. So if the source is too quiet, you just need to drive the input gain. And you can see something right here. You can see a line and then something at the back. Well, the thing at the back is the sound that comes out from the filter. And what we see at the front is the envelope that the Env.Fllower is generating. And this is a little bit different from the source. And this is because we have an attack and a release, but before we have the threshold. The threshold is like a compressor. If the incoming signal is below the threshold, nothing will happen. So if I play something and I go up on the threshold and I put it above the sound, there is no envelope. But if I keep going down, it's going to pick up the signal and then it will generate an envelope. Now then, you have the attack and you have the release. When I play something, notice that the shape is a little bit different. So if I go to attack, what it will do, it will smooth the initial transient. And this depends on the source that you're trying to process. That is that the shape right now, it's just curve. It's because we have slow attack. Same thing with backwards. If I add a lot of release, when it comes down, it's super smooth. When I stop playing, of course. So we have a very slow release. If I go down, it's going to be super sharp release, and it's pretty much, like the original source. All of these controls are very common for an Env.Fllower. I think this addition, it's great because we can listen to different sources. Let's say that I want to maybe listen to noise and I want to modulate the cutoff with some noise. Well, we can. I can go to the utility engine, I can enable the noise 1, and I get some white noise. But on this one, I can go all the way down in volume. And now the source, instead of being the filter 1, I can use the utility 1. Noise is all the way down, but we are using or listening to that to generate a modulation. And now I'm going to take the combinate and I'm going to go up, and now we have a little bit of modulation with noise. Now, of course, we can use something else. Maybe I could go to some crackle, whatever, other sample, and this will give us a different type of modulation, which is, again, I think it's just great, a great addition. Another possibility will be maybe going to the engine 2, which is, the entrance, and we can maybe use a sample of our own, or maybe use a different sample. I could use maybe this one. I'm going to select it, and now we are going to be using this sample. So I'm going to go here to engine 2. Notice that we get it, and the modulation is different. So I can go down on this volume of this engine, and now we are using that modulation. Great. Another way to use this is going to be using the audio input, just like we did before. I'm going to go to audio input. I'm going to go maybe to my DAW. I'm going to use the drums that we used before, and I'm going to choose that as a sidechain. And now when I go back, we are listening to the drums, remember? I'm going to maybe disable this and disable this one. And this one is reacting to the drums that I have at the back. And now we have, a different motion. The last addition I think is worth mentioning is the vocoder. We get an effects vocoder right here. And this one is a very simple vocoder. It's not super complex. It's not like the one that you get with the Arturia collection. And one of the things that we wanted to use with a vocoder is a synthesizer and some vocals. And you can do it with this one. I will go to my DAW and I have a vocal right here. And if I play it back and go to the sidechain of Pigments, I can see that I'm listening to my vocals. And if I go back to the plugin and I go to the modulator as an audio in, now we are listening to, the vocals. Now if I play something, it's just not going to sound that good. And this is because you need to maybe tune whatever it is that you're using as an engine. If I use something with more harmonics, we will get something, a little bit better. So, right, so that's, what I get. I'm gonna do a little bit of post effects like reverb. Right, so we get that vocoder vibe. Still, we can add more vents, enhance it. Right, so. Right, and we get that vocoder type of vibe. You have 3 different modes, and you can even change the format. I'm gonna go down on the scent. Maybe it's just too much. You get, that vocoder vibe. Maybe formants. You have the sibilance control, and you can even tilt it to get that harsh. Or you can just dispose it by going down. You also have a gate, so you can just filter the frequencies that you want. But yeah, you can, if you want to use this vocoder to process vocals just like you would on a vocoder. Still, if you don't use the audio in, whatever other thing that you use as a vocoder is going to give you, it's going to give you something extra. And all of this is something that you kind of need to experiment. For example, if I do something like this, maybe I'm going to need some other harmonics, something a little bit more. I'm going to go to the wavetable and maybe select just a different wavetable. There we go, something a little bit more aggressive. And now when I change whatever it is that we are using, we get a little bit more. And I think this effects is really good when you modulate the different controls. For example, you get like a wah-wah. Maybe I could go to a function and just map the format to the function, and every time I play it, I get a motion. Maybe we can do something like that, and then just, use it like an envelope, and all of that is, just the function that we are using right here. If I turn it off, it sounds completely different. So, yeah. Okay, so one more thing that I can show you that it's simple and it's super cool is the sample scan. And this one only works when you go to the granular one. Maybe I'm going to select a different sample from a different place, maybe some impacts. Let me just select a different sample, something. Okay, this one is cool. So when it's scan, it's completely off. We have the playback right here. And then the grains will generate where we have the playback, the playback head. The thing is that this can move forward or it will move backwards. That's why you can go forwards or you can go backwards. And as you could guess, if I move forward maybe 100%, when I play, this will scan the whole sample. That's, what we get. That's why it's scan. And then when it's done, it's just going to go back and loop back, just scanning the whole waveform. So why do we get, from 0 to maybe 200? So this is the speed of the scan. If I go to 200s, it's really fast. If I go to maybe 22%, it's going to be a lot slower. And the same thing goes if we go backwards. If I go backwards to 200%, it's going to go backwards in reverse. If I do 10 or maybe less, it's going to be a lot slower. And okay, so hopefully all of this was useful to you. And if you like what I do, please like the video. And this channel is supported by viewers only. If you want to buy me a coffee just to say thanks and help the channel keep going on, you can. You have links at the description for PayPal, YouTube Thanks, and Patreon.